Try that again. All right, good morning. Welcome home to Cassidy. My name is Stephen Mitchell, and it is a great joy to be here with you. It is my joy to be able to share with you that intro video, which if you didn't catch it, in case you missed it, that was my face on every single person in there, including the statue. You're welcome. We did that for you. It was not for me at all, because I've never wanted to be Indiana Steve in the Temple of Bad Face Swaps. But it was a joy to be able to make it, because the whole idea of our brand new series is, in case you missed it, we're going to look at stories from the Bible that I can almost guarantee you either you don't remember or you've never heard. And today, after you hear it, I guarantee you, you will never forget the story we're going to talk about today. It's about a guy named Ehud. Anybody ever heard of Ehud? Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. No, we got one. There you go. So you're really going to like today because it's going to be great. The reality is this. Sometimes with Christ, we don't stay connected because we move right past the stories. We move right past the realities that we could experience with God. And so today, we want to take a little bit of time and embrace what God has given us. Listen to some stories that maybe we haven't heard a lot of. Maybe the details make us cringe a little bit, but that's going to be great. It's going to help us to understand and to move forward because we want to grow in our relationship with God. And so we as a community are taking a Bible verse very seriously. We are learning this as a group so that we can live it out. The Bible verse comes from John 15:5. I'm going to invite you to say this with me. Jesus said, "I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit." The hope that we have in that is that we can stay connected to God so that we can live productive, so that we can live out our faith, so that we can love people where they are, so we can make a difference in their lives so they might come to know the radical love and grace that is Jesus Christ. And so this series, we're going to start in the book of Judges. Judges is a weird time in Israel's history. Israel was led out into the promised land by God's presence leading them into the promised land. And as soon as they get into the promised land and conquer it, that's when the real struggle for Israel begins. That they go through these cycles, and the cycles are that they are faithful to God, and then they move into a time of rebellion, and then they move into a time of pleading with God, and then they move back into faithfulness. One of the lines from the book of Judges that just kind of sums up or summarizes the entire point of the book is, everyone did what was right in their own eyes. It comes from Judges 17:6. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. And that led to cycles. cycles of obedience where they would be obedient to God, but then they would rebel against God, and God would remove his protection, his providence from them, and outside forces would come and conquer them or come and cause issues, and then they would return to God. They would say, "Oh God, where are you?" They would remember the promises of God, and they would return to God, and God would restore them. When I first became Christian, I was like, how could you ever be so dumb? How could you live your life in those cycles? Until I'd been Christian long enough to see those cycles in my own life that I was like, oh, well, maybe they're not quite as dumb as I thought they were. Maybe they're a lot more like me than I want to acknowledge. And we all do this. We all go through these cycles where we are close to God and then we drift and then we need to return to God. So today we're going to look at a story about a guy named Ehud again. And the whole idea in this story is that in case you missed it, we're going to learn some details about who God is and what God calls upon us to do and how we can live our lives in the presence of God for the building of God's kingdom. And my guess is if you had children and you had a boy, Ehud was not the number one contender for the name that you were going to choose for your kiddo. But after today, maybe you're going to be like, okay, maybe that's a grandkid's name, or maybe you can suggest this to a neighbor when they're trying to pick it out. So we're going to pick it up in Judges 3, verse 12. It says this: "Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And because they did this evil, the Lord gave Eglon, king of Moab, power over Israel. Getting the Ammonites and the Amalekites to join him, Eglon came and attacked Israel, and they took possession of the city of palms." The city of palms is also known as Jericho. The Israelites were subject to Eglon, king of Moab, for 18 years. Again, the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and he gave them a deliverer, Ehud. Again, did you catch the again? There's like a bookending thing going on. It says, again, the Israelites did what was wrong in the eyes of the Lord, and again, God gave them a deliverer named Ehud. They were trapped in a cycle. Now, what we're going to see through this whole story is that God uses unlikely people to deliver people that are in bondage to freedom, unlikely people to act in the name of God so that God's work and will can be done. And this story happens to be about a guy named Ehud. Now, I've said his name enough, and my hope is that at the end of this, you will remember his name because you will definitely remember his story. It says this: "Again, the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and he gave them a deliverer, Ehud, the left-handed man, the son of Jerah, the Benjamite. The Israelites sent him with tribute to Eglon, king of Moab." Now, Ehud made a double-edged sword out of about a cubit long, which is about a foot long, which he strapped to his right thigh under his clothing. He presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab, who was a very fat man. Mike, I'm going to pause here and just say, how fat do you think you have to be a very fat man in the Bible? Like, they're like, this guy, this is Jabba the Hutt before Jabba the Hutt existed. For those of you that know, you know. It's good. After Ehud had presented the tribute, he sent on their way those who had carried it. But on reaching the stone images near Gilgal, he himself went back to Eglon and said, "Your Majesty, I have a secret message for you." And the king said to his attendants, "Leave us." And they all left. All right, so we have a left-handed man, and we have, maybe you've felt this way. Have you ever felt left-handed in a right-handed world? Maybe you felt out of sorts in the world, like everything is going right for everybody else except for you, and you feel like you have a disadvantage over everybody else. That's exactly how Ehud felt. And he's a Benjamite, which means he's from the smallest tribe, and so he is sent to Eglon to bring tribute. And Eglon, a very fat man, don't forget that part, it plays into the story. You're going to love it. A very fat man is the king of Moab at the time. And for 18 years, the Israelites have been in bondage to the king of Moab. And here's what happens. Eglon sits in comfort built on Israel's pain because Israel has to pay Eglon to not conquer them. That's what tribute is. Tribute is a nation that has been overpowered by a neighbor nation. And then the neighbor says, well, I'll let you stay a nation as long as you pay me tribute. And so Ehud is the one who is carrying tribute in to pay Eglon, king of Moab. A conquered nation had to pay regularly, and they would send leaders or officials to deliver it in person. Why? It was a public reminder of who was in charge. And refusing to pay it could mean punishment or military action. And so you had to pay. And Ehud is a part of this system. So he comes with the people that are carrying the tribute to the king and providing it to him. So he comes with a group of folks, and then they take off, but he hangs back. And he goes to Eglon and he says, hey, king, I have a secret message for you. And the king, who is not threatened in the least by Ehud, sends his attendants away. Now, this is when we're going to have some fun with this story. Ehud then approached him, and while he was sitting alone in the upper room of his palace, he said, I have a message from God for you. And the king rose from his seat. Are you ready for this? Let's get into the details. Ehud reached with his left hand and drew the sword from his right thigh and plunged it into the king's belly. Even the handle sank in. After the blade and his bowels discharged. Oh, Ehud did not pull the sword out. He chose to leave it there. And the fat closed in over it. This is where Suzanne says, that is not a pretty picture. Woo! For those of you who love detail, there it is. The Lord has provided. You get all of that detail. And here's the thing. All of this kind of plays into the rest of the story. So Ehud pulls the sword out and stabs him, and it goes all the way in, and Ehud chooses not to reach in and pull it back out. I think it'll just stay there. That's a good place for it. And then his bowels discharged. Now, you might think, that's very unnecessary to share, Pastor Steve. But it's not, because that's necessary for the rest of the story. Here it goes. Then Ehud went out on the porch. He shut the doors of the upper room behind him, and he locked them. After he had gone, the servants came and found the doors to the upper room locked. And they said, he, the king, Eglon, must be relieving himself in the inner room of the palace. Why? Because they could smell it. I told you you'd never forget this. They thought he was in the bathroom, right? That's what they were like, oh man, whoo. I think we'll just leave that one there. Maybe we should wait for a minute. And so finally, they waited to the point of embarrassment. So they are the king's stewards, right? They're sitting outside and they're like, well, we shouldn't go in because he's in the bathroom. We can smell what's going on. And then they waited long enough and they said, okay, it's been too long. We've got to go check. Nobody that doesn't have a phone spends that much time in the bathroom. But when he did not open the doors to the room, they went in. They took a key. I'm jumping ahead. They took a key and unlocked them. There they saw their Lord fallen to the floor, dead. And here's why it mattered. While they waited, Ehud got away. He passed by the stone images and escaped to Sarah. And when he arrived there, he blew the trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim. And the Israelites went down with him from the hills, with him leading them. And he said, follow me, he ordered, for the Lord has given Moab into your hand, your enemy into your hands. So they followed him down and took possession of the fords of the Jordan that led to Moab, and they allowed no one to cross. At that time, they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all vigorous and strong. Not one escaped. That day, Moab was made subject to Israel, and the land of Israel had peace for 80 years. How many of you think you're going to forget this story after we leave today? It's a great story, and some of you are thinking, this is the weirdest Bible story I have ever heard, and some of you didn't make it past the gross bits. That's okay. Ehud was just some guy. He was unthreatening, so unthreatening that King Elgon didn't even want his bodyguards around or protection. He was like, this guy, he's left-handed. He doesn't have any benefits at all. No problem. Have you ever noticed how God works through people nobody expects? That God chooses people that don't look like they should fit the model and uses them to make a difference in the building of God's kingdom. And so frequently, we disqualify ourselves. We disqualify ourselves with our doubt. Like we look at the situation before us and we struggle. I mean, what did Ehud have? First, according to the time, because he was left-handed, according to the time, what did he have? A disability. Or he was possessed or cursed or unlikely to achieve anything because he was left-handed in a right-handed world. In reality, though, God had a plan for him. God had a plan for him to free Israel from the rule and reign of Moab. What if God has plans for you and you could bring someone peace? Not with a sword. Don't go getting any crazy ideas. But with a word, with your presence, with the truth of the gospel, with the hope that Jesus offers to us. I mean, we see the pattern because we see it in our own lives, but we see it there. Israel sins, they get stuck, they cry out, and God sends someone unexpected. You do the same thing. You drift, you get stuck, you feel it, and you wonder if God can use you because of the things that you have done or the lack of things and skills that you have. And then doubt shows up and you think to yourself, I'm not ready. I don't know enough. I can't possibly be of use to God. I'm not the right kind of person. And that's where most people stop. But that's not where Ehud stopped. Ehud didn't stop there. Ehud, look at what he had. Again, from the smallest tribe. Not the ideal warrior, overlooked enough to walk right past security without getting the pat down. This isn't weakness. This was God's plan. This was what God intended. And here is the shift that I think we as followers of Jesus need to embrace. Stop asking, am I enough? And start asking, am I available? Because God uses even the least likely of us to do something great. And what if you could free someone from 18 years of bondage to sin and death by sharing with them the good news of Jesus Christ, and then they could live another 80 years with peace in their lives? That's exactly what we can experience with God, that we can be used by God to make a difference in the life. Because God does not wait for impressive people. He works through available people. He works through you and through me. And so how do we live into this? How do we embrace this? How do we take a step into it? This week, the way we're going to stay connected is take time every day this week. Take some intentional time this week to ask God this question: am I available? Am I available? God, am I available to you? That's staying connected to God. And then, if you're available, take a step. Not 10 steps, just one step. What is one step that you can do to make a difference in the lives of others today? What is one thing you can do to share love and share grace? Not share a sword, but share love and share grace. And if if the answer to the question that you ask God every day is no, you're not available, take some time every day to talk to Jesus about why you're not available. What's holding you back? What is it that's keeping you from taking that step into relationship for Jesus? Your obedience can be the doorway to someone else's breakthrough, where they might find life and love and hope in Jesus Christ. They might find the gift that God has given to them has been right before their eyes the whole time, and you could be the vessel that brings that to them. Think about what happens if we actually live this out. If people stop waiting for God to do something because we are moving and doing what God is already doing. Fear stops leading our decisions, and faith starts acting so that we can live out our faith for others. And over time, homes change, friend groups transform, our community becomes reborn more and more in the image of God. Not because we have it all together, but because we said yes, because we were available. That's the gift that God gives to us. We don't have to know all the answers before we take a step. We don't have to pretend we have it all together before we're faithful to God. We just have to take a step and say, God, I'll do whatever you want me to. I'll be available in this moment. Help me to be more like Jesus. Help me to love people. Help me to live boldly. Help me to take a step. And help me to transform the world one person at a time for the kingdom of God. Amen? Amen.